Welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the 2024 presidential election, and we're going to take a look at ultimately what type of election are we going to be seeing in 2024. Is it going to be somewhat of a wave election for the party? What are the differences if depending on the type of candidate they run and how popular the Biden administration is? We're going to be looking at a lot of different factors in today's video. So, if you like our content, please remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. So, let's get started. So, I've already filled in the states that I think, no matter what, will be going to either party. These include states like, in the more swingish, like other than safety states like New Mexico, New Hampshire, Colorado, Virginia, Minnesota. For the Democrats, and for the Republicans, I filled in states like Ohio, states like Iowa. Those states that in both sides have consistently voting more to the opposite side. They're getting more polarized, and to the point that I really see very little to no path for the other party to realistically win here. They may get a lot closer, but we're not looking at margins today. Today we're just looking at what are the possible scenarios for 2024, and if realistically are we going to be able to see a Republican or Democratic landslide during the election. So the first scenario we're going to look at is take a look at what if Biden's administration goes extremely well. Biden is very popular. So if that's kind of a Biden best case scenario at this point, I think that you're going to see at least states like Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Biden winning all the states he won in 2020 plus North Carolina, and you would also add the state of Nebraska's second congressional district. So that is the starting off point for Biden if everything goes well. And this would be assuming that Biden runs again, which again, it's a growing possibility. It's still very unlikely, but this is also kind of just running a generic Democrat, generic Republican. If it's someone in Biden's administration, like a Kamala Harris, although she might be irritating to some people, to some voters, she doesn't really appeal to them heavily, I think you could still see a noticeable big change in it. I think for the Democrats, if Biden does well, this would be kind of the base starting off map, which would be essentially what we saw in 2020 election. I mean, and if you raise the right candidate, you could probably win in North Carolina. And if it's a blowout year, Republicans are heavily divided like they currently are, with the sort of QAnon, very extreme far-right MAGA side of the party, and the more Bush Republican economist, corporatist part of the Republican Party. I think that if that division continues to sue, we could see some changes, and I think they might maybe possibly lose the group of Florida, which I'm right now even... I was considering putting it in the same tier as Iowa and Ohio, right? Because the Republicans, they have a very solid grasp on Florida. They won the last couple of statewide races there. The last Democrat elected was just the Agricultural Commission. It was a very close race in 2018. And since then, I mean, you've seen Democrats fall. In the House, they made some gains, but they lost them again. And generally because the Hispanic populations in the state are just trending so much further to the right that I think this state could soon join states like Ohio and Iowa as swingish states. They could be competitive, however, never enough for the Democrats to win there in considerable time. So I think if everything goes absolutely right for the Democrats and everything goes absolutely wrong for the GOP, I think Florida is going to be a state that would go, giving Biden 349 electoral votes. As for Nebraska, Maine 2nd District, I think that could also go if everything goes absolutely wrong. The state of Texas is the kind of currently, I would say that in an absolute best case scenario where Democrats are able to appeal to everyone, they're able to appeal to those bases by those big margins, and they're really able to consolidate the vote in the southern part of the state, get close to where the Beto O'Rourke excitement and push it a little bit over with those growing population of college educated voters that are now leaving California as everything's gone distant. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that's actually a startling statistic. That for the Democrats, they really are going to have a big influx of college-educated voters into Texas, which, at the end of the day, it's really going to help them out as they try to win more of the state. And it is possible, definitely, for the Democrats to win here if everything goes right for Biden. Now, I want to go back and let's talk about a different scenario. This scenario is discussing more a scenario. I think those are all the states that we had and the Rust Belt. Let's see. I think I'm missing a state if I'm correct. Or maybe not. I'll see. I think I got it, all the states I covered. So the next scenario we're going to talk about is discussing what if the Republicans have a very good opposition to Biden in the way that they did kind of opposition to Obama and those type of Democrats in 2016, and just do a very strong Biden opposition, kind of painting him as the bad guy. And truly, this also would imply Biden's administration doing horrific, not being able to take care of COVID, those type of things. If that happens, I think that we're definitely going to see the GOP, if they run the right candidate as well, because I did a video yesterday where they talked about what if Donald Trump ran for president himself in 2024. And I made it extremely clear, if Donald Trump ran for president in 2024, the GOP will lose against Kamala Harris, against Joe Biden, against all those people. And I think, for example, state like Texas is going to be further away, for example, for voting for Biden if he runs again, or someone in the Biden administration, especially after the oil dilemma. Now, I think that in case, for example, in 2024, if everything starts going good for Biden when he's getting a lot of good approval ratings on how and if he's able to contain COVID completely, that's gonna really resonate with voters. And the oil thing in oil states like Texas and New Mexico might be forgiven. But going back to what I was saying, I would say that like the average candidate is generic. Let's just suppose someone like a Ron DeSantis, a Nikki Haley, those type of people. And I think that if all of that goes well for Republicans, they would definitely have a state like Florida, definitely a state like Texas, already kind of leveling out the playing field. A state like North Carolina might also go. And now from here is just adding on to where they can add on. Where they could add to the 2020 electoral map. And I think definitely if Trump's off the ballot, but his ideas are on the ballot, there's excitement amongst GOP and they're all united, and Biden's unpopular, you have a very united oppositions against one person. You know, it kind of also reminds me, this GOP, the current state of GOP, sort of where the Democrats were in 2016 or 2017, where these, and more, not 2017 perhaps, but more like 2018, when these further left Democrats, these Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez types, Bernie Sanders was gaining so much power in the party. I mean, it got to the point where establishment and outsider, they started clashing hands. And even in the primaries in 2020, that clashing of heads among everyone in the Democratic Party almost completely fractured them. And I think the same thing is going on in the GOP. So if that is fixed, for example, you could see states like Georgia and Arizona come back. Now, I think the Republicans, the best case scenario they'll do, I think they could win in Pennsylvania. I think they can win in Wisconsin if they're on the right candidate. I think Michigan is still far-fetched. And if they run the right candidate and the conditions are well for them, they could possibly win Nevada. Here's my reasoning. The reasoning here is that, one, it's assuming that Biden becomes unpopular because of certain things, and the Democrats just, or the Republicans having very good approval. The ideas are popular. In a state like Nevada, you're seeing the tourism industry in Las Vegas starting to shrink a little bit post-COVID. That really let a lot of those union workers that would traditionally vote for Democrats out of the state. So with that, those voters out of the state, increase in suburban populations, and, you know, a lot of excitement for the GOP, perhaps, I think we could see in like a better case scenario, we could see the Republicans win in Nevada. Now, I want to go back to the battleground map that we had, and I want to discuss another scenario, possible scenario that I see happening. And I forgot to classify Nebraska and Maine. I think that the Democratic Party probably would lose control there if the GOP is able to have their very strong support the general Biden against Biden movement. If that succeeds, I think the Democrats are going to have a tough time in Maine and Nebraska. So this is where we're at. Now, I want to discuss another possibility. I want to discuss individual candidates, perhaps. I want to see if someone like for example, Trump wing of the party that were very, like, let's suppose that Ted Cruz ran generically, I think Ted Cruz probably to Florida, Texas and Florida, perhaps North Carolina, but everything else would be going to the Democrats, giving them a majority. Now, I think that, and I'm going to make a video specifically about this candidate, but for the Republicans, it is best if they are on someone like a Ron DeSantis, because he could probably win in Florida and Texas. Arizona and Georgia didn't go by too much, and he could probably appeal to those voters. For DeSantis, is just getting 9 more electoral votes, or 7 electoral votes more. There you go. He wins Wisconsin. I think that's doable for someone like DeSantis. And I think for the Republicans, they should be heavily looking at DeSantis as a possible candidate, because he could definitely appeal to all of those groups of voters. And I think that coming in 2024, we're really not going to see, not a wave for either party, because I think it's going to be a close election. I would say closer, if not the same as close as 2020. And I think ultimately it's going to boil down to the point that we have states like Florida and Texas stay solidly in the GOP, and state like Michigan, for example, going for the Democrats, I would say, or in Nevada. And then everything else on this map would be up for grabs, kind of the election. And then it's going to really come down to, I would say that a state like North Carolina would probably go to the Republicans, while a state like Pennsylvania will probably go to the Republicans, or to the Democrats. And then from there, it just comes who can, the Democrats are really close. I mean, the Republicans would have to sweep everywhere else to get to 270. I think this is a very big possibility for the electoral map, or you could just say here too, but you take here. I think we're going to really play around with that map and see the possibilities. But one thing is for sure, the Democrats must do very well in the Midwest to win. They must solidify that area. If not, they have to do very, very well down in the South, which is going to be something that's going to be a little bit harder for them. And, overall, I think that this election is going to be close. I might say that it depends also who runs, because, that's a very big variable, because depending on the candidate, the results might be completely different. So, ultimately, I think the 2024 election is going to be contested. And again, we don't know what's going to happen from here to there. We don't know. I mean, like I said in yesterday's video, who in the world could have guessed that we're going to have a global pandemic literally months before a presidential election in the United States? And who could have guessed the effects politically that pandemic would have, and economically that pandemic would have had? No one can. So, I mean, these predictions further out, they're really going to be harder to analyze, just because we really don't have enough information to talk about the environment and current morale of the country at the time. However, even this far out, we can make some projections. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest video. Hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye!